Have you ever wondered what would happen if the girl who always seemed untouchable in school, the one with the perfect grades, the perfect looks, and the family name everyone whispered about, suddenly found herself stranded on the side of the road, powerless, vulnerable, and forced to rely on someone she never even noticed back then? That's exactly how this story begins. And trust me, you'll want to stay until the end, because what unfolds is not just a coincidence, it's a reminder that life has a way of rewriting the roles we think we're stuck with. Sophia Alden was used to control. Every detail of her life, from the shade of lipstick she wore to the words she released in press conferences, was perfectly orchestrated. Being the only daughter of Marcus Alden, the billionaire who had turned Alden Industries into a global powerhouse, meant that expectations followed her like shadows. She wasn't just a businesswoman, she was the face of a dynasty. And sometimes that weight pressed down so heavily she could barely breathe. On that cold autumn morning, she did something uncharacteristic. She slipped out of the Alden headquarters mid-meeting, ignored her assistant's frantic texts, and got behind the wheel of her late mother's vintage silver convertible. No chauffeur, no bodyguard, no PR team controlling her every move. Just her, the open road, and a desperate attempt to feel human again. At first, the drive was exhilarating. The trees along Hollow Creek shimmered with golden leaves. The wind tangled her hair, and the silence was a relief compared to the endless noise of her usual world. But halfway up a lonely stretch of road, the engine coughed, sputtered, and finally gave up. The convertible rolled to a pitiful stop. Sophia smacked the steering wheel in frustration. "Of course," she muttered. No signal on her phone, no driver to call. Just silence, broken only by the rustling of the trees. Her designer heels crunched against the gravel as she got out, arms folded tightly against the chill. For once, she wasn't the billionaire heiress on magazine covers. She was just a young woman stranded in the middle of nowhere. That's when she noticed the hand-painted wooden sign. Walker's Auto, 3 miles. The words were scrawled unevenly, but it was the only hope in sight. Meanwhile, at the other end of that dusty road, Ethan Walker was elbow deep in the guts of an old pickup truck. His one-man garage wasn't much to look at, just a corrugated roof, walls lined with tools, and a beat-up radio playing classic rock. But to him, it was home. He'd inherited it from his father, who had once dreamed of expanding it into something bigger before illness cut his life short. Ethan had stayed behind after high school to keep the garage alive, even when people said he had potential to leave Hollow Creek and make something of himself. The sound of unfamiliar tires rolling onto the gravel pulled his attention. He straightened up, wiped his greasy hands on a rag, and squinted toward the entrance. A gleaming silver convertible, the kind you'd never expect to see in a quiet town like this, came to a halt. The door opened, and out stepped Sophia Alden. Her blonde hair was pulled into a sleek ponytail, her beige trench coat cinched neatly at the waist. She looked like she belonged on a runway, not outside his dusty little garage. For a second, Ethan froze. The face was familiar, not from tabloids or business magazines, but from years ago. Lincoln High, she had been the star of everything. Debate team, honor society, student council president. And him, he was the quiet kid in the back row, the one no one remembered. Sophia glanced around the garage, her expression skeptical. "Hi," she said with the kind of polished politeness you use with strangers. "My car broke down a few miles back. Someone said you're the only garage nearby." "That'd be me," Ethan replied, his voice calm, steady. He didn't let on that he recognized her. Not yet. She hesitated, as if the rustic simplicity of the place made her question whether he was capable of fixing anything more complicated than a lawnmower. "Can you take a look?" "Sure," he said, grabbing his jacket. "Lead the way." They rode back to the convertible in silence. Sophia sat rigid, her jaw tight, clearly unused to being the one asking for help. Ethan popped the hood, poked around, and gave a short whistle. Timing belts shredded. "Battery's low too." "Can you fix it?" she asked, trying to mask her impatience. "Yeah," he said, "but I'll need to order the part." "That's a day, maybe two." She exhaled sharply, frustration flashing in her eyes. Billionaires weren't used to waiting, but she nodded. "Fine." He wiped his hands again, then glanced sideways at her. "There's a bed and breakfast past the hill. Doris runs it. Not fancy, but the coffee's good. Sophia gave a tight nod and turned to leave. But just before she walked away, Ethan's voice stopped her. You're Sophia Alden, right? She froze, then slowly turned back. Yes, and you are? A faint smile tugged at his lips. Ethan Walker. Lincoln High, class of 2016. We went to school together. Her brows furrowed. She searched his face, trying to place him. There was something familiar in his eyes, but the rest, grease-stained shirt, calloused hands, the quiet weight in his voice, felt like someone entirely new. I'm sorry, she admitted. I don't remember you. I didn't expect you to, Ethan said easily. I sat in the back. Didn't talk much. There was no bitterness in his tone, just fact. For the first time in years, Sophia felt the sting of not having noticed someone who clearly noticed her. She opened her mouth to respond, but he was already closing the hood. I'll call you when the part comes in. You can leave the car here. As she walked toward the bed and breakfast, she couldn't shake the feeling that this stranger, this boy from the back row, might know more about who she had been than she did herself. Isn't it fascinating how life works? In high school, Sophia never even glanced at the kid in the back row. And now, when all her money and power mean nothing on that quiet road, he's the one person she has to rely on. I think this is where stories start to feel real, when roles reverse and the invisible people suddenly hold the keys. What happens when two people who once lived in completely different worlds are suddenly forced into the same orbit again? That's exactly what Sophia Alden discovered the next morning when she walked back to Ethan's garage. The bed and breakfast had been humbling. Doris, the owner, greeted her with a firm handshake and an even firmer opinion. You look like you're used to being somewhere else. The room had a handmade quilt, creaky pipes, and no luxury in sight. For Sophia, who usually lived in penthouses and hotels with glass elevators, it felt like stepping into someone else's life. And strangely, it unsettled her more than the broken-down convertible. By sunrise, she found herself restless. The company emails waiting in her inbox felt irrelevant. For once, she didn't want to rush back into boardrooms and news headlines. Instead, she walked the gravel path to the garage, curious, almost against her own will. Inside, Ethan was working with the radio humming low, Tom Petty singing something about heartbreak. He didn't look up right away. When he finally glanced at her, his expression was calm, almost amused. You didn't have to come back this early, he said. I didn't have anything else to do, she replied, hugging her trench coat tighter. Ethan gestured to a folding chair near the workbench. Suit yourself. Sophia sat, scanning the garage. It was simple but spotless. Tools were arranged with precision, an old coffee mug doubled as a pencil holder, and on the desk sat a sketchbook cracked open. She leaned closer. To Kill a Mockingbird, she murmured, recognizing the worn paperback sitting beside the sketchbook. Ethan tightened a bolt without looking up. Senior year. You led the discussion. You said Atticus was the only man in the book who knew how to shut up and still be heard. Sophia blinked. She hadn't thought of that in years. I didn't realize anyone was listening. Some of us didn't need to talk to pass. For the first time, she really looked at him, the quiet boy in the back row, always doodling, never speaking. She remembered once vaguely when a substitute teacher forced him to read aloud. His voice had cracked like he wasn't used to hearing himself. But here he was now, steady, grounded, grease on his hands, confidence in his silence. You never went to college? She asked. Ethan leaned back against the car. Didn't go. My dad got sick senior year. Someone had to keep the garage running. It wasn't a bad choice. I'm sorry, she said softly. He shrugged, unfazed. Not everything needs to be a tragedy. Sophia studied the faded logo painted on the wall. Walker's Auto, established 1975. His garage was a legacy too, just not the kind that appeared in Forbes magazines. As the day stretched on, she stayed longer than she meant to. They talked about teachers, pep rallies, the absurdity of school assemblies. Ethan remembered everything. Sophia was surprised at how little she did. You were everywhere, Ethan said. Clubs, debates, student council, always moving. My parents called it staying visible, she said bitterly. And now I haven't had a free weekend since I was 19. Even this trip wasn't supposed to happen. I just ran. Ethan gave a small smile. Guess your engine had the same idea. Sophia laughed for the first time in days. It startled her. Real laughter, not the polished kind she gave reporters. Later, her eyes drifted to Ethan's sketchbook. A car, intricately shaded, technical and artistic at once. Then another drawing, a woman looking out a window, unfinished. You did these? She asked. Ethan nodded. They're incredible, she said. He didn't answer, just closed the sketchbook. But the look in his eyes said enough. Drawing was the part of himself he didn't share lightly. The next morning, Sophia returned with 2 coffees, one black, one drowned in cream and sugar. Ethan raised an eyebrow when she handed it to him. You guessed right, he said after a sip. I hate bitter. Observant, eventually, she replied with a smirk. He chuckled, then motioned toward a rust-colored Mustang on the lift. Want to see something that actually matters? Sophia followed him, heels clicking against the concrete. He explained the repair in simple words, no condescension. She listened, genuinely curious. At one point, Ethan asked, You ever get tired of being the person everyone watches? She hesitated. All the time. He didn't press, just nodded like he already knew. Later that afternoon, while waiting for her car part to arrive, Ethan led her up a dirt path behind the garage. My dad used to bring me here, he explained. At the ridge, the whole town unfolded below them. Library, diner, gas station. I always thought towns like this were boring, Sophia said quietly. They are, Ethan replied, until they're not. Do you ever wish you left? She asked. I used to, he admitted. But now I think success isn't leaving. It's being at peace where you are. Sophia looked at him for a long moment. I miss when ambition didn't feel like pressure. When I was proud to win, not scared to lose. You were always running towards something, Ethan said. And you were always sketching, she replied softly. They laughed, nostalgic and strange. And for the first time, Sophia began to wonder if the girl in the front row had missed something. Someone important. By the 3rd day, Sophia's car was fixed. The part had arrived, and Ethan had worked with quiet precision, wiping grease from his hands as he handed her the keys. She's ready, he said. Runs smoother than before. Sophia didn't take the keys right away. So, that's it? I leave, and you go back to pretending I was just another name in the alumni list? Ethan tilted his head. Depends. You planning to come back? She looked down at the keys, then back at him. I think I already have. That evening, Ethan closed the garage early. They walked to the old high school, now mostly shuttered. The gym door creaked open, dust settling around the bleachers. This is where we had assemblies, Sophia said. You always sat up front, Ethan replied. Easier to leave from the back. Why didn't I ever see you? She asked. You were too busy shining, he said simply. Her throat tightened. You weren't in the way, Ethan. I just never looked. They sat in silence, memories pressing in. For once, Sophia let the polished version of herself fade. I thought I loved this place, awards, recognition. But really, I needed it to prove something. To my parents, to myself. I don't even know anymore. Ethan was quiet for a long time. Then he said, You know, I didn't draw you from memory. I drew you from right now. The version of you who doesn't need to prove anything. Sophia blinked back tears. For the first time, she believed someone saw her without measuring her. The next morning, her car idled at the garage door. Suitcase packed, emails waiting. Ethan glanced at the bag. So, return to civilization. Just for a while, she said softly. You know, he told her, the world won't end if you miss an email. Try telling my board that. I'd tell them to look out over Hollow Creek first, he said. She laughed, then faded. Thank you. Not just for the car, for everything. He nodded. You're welcome. I see you now, Ethan, she added. He held her gaze. Yeah, but now you're leaving. She took a breath. I have to, but I'm not disappearing. Before she drove away, he handed her a folded piece of paper, their high school class photo. She spotted herself in the front row, bright and polished. And in the back row, Ethan, half turned, almost invisible. Someone had circled him in pencil. Sophia smiled. You kept this? Some things, Ethan said, are easier to remember when you don't try so hard to forget them. As she drove back toward the city skyline, the weight on her shoulders felt lighter. For the first time in years, Sophia Alden wasn't certain of who she was supposed to be, and that uncertainty felt like freedom. Days later, Ethan got a call from a real estate agent. An anonymous buyer wanted to lease him the corner lot next to his garage. No strings attached. Ethan didn't ask for a name. He already knew. A week later, he heard it, a familiar engine pulling into the driveway. Sophia stepped out of the convertible, dressed down in jeans and a white shirt, holding 2 coffees. "I figured the least I could do was deliver in person," she said. "You said you weren't disappearing," Ethan replied. "And I meant it." She handed him the cup. "I liked who I was in that drawing you made. I think I'd like to meet her again here." Ethan smiled. "Then stay long enough to find out." And just like that, the billionaire girl who once measured her life in press releases and stock values began measuring it in coffee cups, grease stains, and quiet smiles. Isn't this powerful? Sophia thought she had everything: money, power, recognition. But it took a boy from the back row, a mechanic she didn't even remember, to remind her who she really was. Maybe that's the point. Success isn't about being seen by the world. It's about being seen by the right person.